Hello, Misfit entrepreneurs. This is Dave Lukas, and welcome to another episode of the Misfit Entrepreneur, where it is our job to help you unleash your inner misfit and break through to higher levels of success, wealth, and fulfillment by bringing you the best insight and information from the world's top entrepreneurs, with a specific focus on their misfit side, the specific traits, habits, and secrets that have allowed them to thrive and succeed. As a reminder, if you're new to watching us on our YouTube channel, hit the subscribe button below, give this video a like and comment as well. We do our best to respond to all comments as timely as possible. This week's Misfit Entrepreneur is Julie Roy. Julie is a multimillionaire entrepreneur that was born into an Italian immigrant family and raised in Windsor, Ontario. She started working when she was just 9 years old and did all kinds of odd jobs, including digging graves. I'll have to hear more about that. From a very young age, she decided not to let her personal or financial mindset be one of scarcity. And so right out of college, she went into business for herself, starting a private Montessori preschool out of her mom's basement. She continued to build businesses, and today she's an entrepreneur, investor, speaker, author, podcaster, coach, world traveler. She's visited all 7 continents with her husband and 4 kids, and she's financially free. Her latest book is called The Multi-Million-Dollar Mompreneur, Your Guide to Business Mastery, Uncommon Freedom, and Legacy Wealth. Julie set out to design the exact life that she envisioned all the way back when she was a kid, and she made it happen. I'm excited for her to share her best wisdom on how you can do the same. So Julie, are you ready to unleash your inner misfit?
I sure am, Dave. Thanks so much for having me today.
Oh, absolutely. It's a great pleasure to have you on. And there's a lot of things I want to talk to you about today, but we always start with each guest on your story. You've got a very unique story, digging graves at 9 years old or however young it was, to make ends meet and stuff. So take 5 minutes or so and just tell us, how'd you get to where you're at?
Sure. So, going way back, I just turned 50 this year, so I'm going to condense that story for you. Initially, I came from parents who were immigrants. They arrived from Italy through Ellis Island, New York, and then over to Canada. So we started, in a very modest neighborhood, I would say middle to lower income. My parents had a business at one point. My grandpa was a barber, so he owned a little shop. There was some space next door. My parents opened a small hardware store. They decided to expand in the recession, brought another family in, lost everything, including their marriage. So ended up being from a single mom, working, 7 a.m. to 9 p.m. to try to make things meet. And so at a really young age, I realized we just don't have the money to have the things that I want to have. We had the basics, but so I started babysitting in the neighborhood. Anybody that would allow me to watch the babies, I was sure. And then I did a side job at the market. I'm vegetarian because of it still 30 years later, but I worked in a meat market, turkey and beef and all the things early in the morning at 5 a.m. I used to ride my bike from where we lived to downtown. So it was quite scary. Oftentimes was chased to work and things like that. So it built a lot of, I guess, I don't know. I want to say the adversity built me, but that's coming too. So basically, I started like that. And then throughout high school, I had numerous jobs. One of them was working in a Montessori preschool before and after school, while I started the beginning years of university. And I had a job with the city during the summer, cutting the lawns and horticulture, they called it. It was a lottery. And then from there, I lost the city job because it's only a 2-year, they only let students do that for 2 years. And so the third year I was like, man, that was great money. What am I going to do to replace that? And I applied for a horticulture job at Heavenly Rest Cemetery, not knowing that that was going to be a little bit more than horticulture. So, I ended up marking and digging, sawed off the grave sites and cleaning up the bones and stuff in the little bone area and cremation area. And I've done a lot of different jobs, Dave, but at the end of the day, I feel like it really created who I am today. So even though folks can't believe that, maybe the path that I've taken, it definitely made me who I am. And that Montessori job actually introduced me into really understanding and knowing that I wanted to do my own thing, right? I was not a good employee. Right. I always had better ideas. I always wanted to do things differently and more efficiently or whatever it was. So that led me into owning my first business. Yeah.
Yeah. So that ended up being a Montessori school. Like you started out of your mom's basement. Is that right?
Yeah. So what happened was I was working before and after school during the school year. So it was in a high school. And so the high school closed in the summer. And so the space was no longer available. Like we didn't operate the Montessori preschool in the summertime. And all these parents still needed care. So I was like, ding, this is an opportunity for maybe me to create a business. And so I asked the parents if they wanted to come to my mom's house, which was literally in the hood compared to where these folks lived, right? And so they were like, yes, sure. Like, we want to go to Miss Julie's house for the summer, whatever. So we started with 11 kids and then had about 13 by the end of the summer. And I set up a Montessori preschool in the basement of my mom's house with like zero money, made all the materials, went to the dollar store, figured it all out, you know. And then at the end of the summer, my mom was like, so we're not going to do this in my house anymore. There's a huge liability, you know. Recess was, we lived in an area where behind us was a park and down the street was the cemetery. And so that's where we took the kids to play, and it was very peaceful and quiet and all the things. And the parents were super cool with me. Honestly, the trust that they had in me was immense. You know, to bring their kids all the way. It was like a 30-minute drive to, you know, where they were coming from. So when they say, you know, if you build something, they will come, I truly believe if it's a destination that's needed and wanted, you know, folks will follow you. So long story short, I ended up needing to get out of my mom's house and was like, how am I going to do this? I have no money. Like, I can't afford a place. So I started to think about churches, things that would be a little bit cheaper to operate out of. So my first Montessori school was out of the basement of a preschool, out of a church. Sorry, we set up a little preschool, and they did charge me rent. And so I needed a loan. And of course, when you have no money, no one wants to lend any money to you. So
it's very expensive.
Yes. And it was. So I found an ad in the newspaper that basically said, hey, you know, you need business credit, call me, Malcolm Banks, which at the time I thought was his real name. Now I'm like, I'm really hesitant to believe Malcolm Banks is anyone's real name. Went to this alley behind McDonald's downtown on a little burgundy door. It was literally like light swinging, Stephen King-ish, you know, took my boyfriend at the time, my husband now. I was like, I think you should come with me. I don't know, like, the area, everything, right? I was like, I'm not sure this is going to be a good deal. So we went in and he sat us down and he went over the loan because I said I needed $25,000. I knew what I needed for classroom materials. I had done like a pro forma, however that looked at, you know, beginning of your business. And so he's like, yeah, we think this is a great idea. You know, you've had a history already in your mom's house, which is enough to pay. It was $500 a month at that time, but the loan was $25,000 at 19%. And I was like, oh yeah, this is perfect. Like, why would I not take a 19% loan? And the other option was literally nothing, right? So he actually had to co-sign for me because I didn't make enough for the loan on my own. And he was in school. He was doing his internship to become a child psychologist. So he was going through his doctorate stuff, and he just looks at me like, what, girl, what are we doing? Like, this is crazy. Like, but you know, he believed in me from day one, and he's still the first one to support all my insanity. Honestly, we've been married for 21 years this year, and we've been together over 30. And so we did get that loan. I paid that loan back in a year because they also told Bo if I didn't pay that they would come after him. Like, they were pretty serious about how they were going to come after him. So failure wasn't an option. And it was like, I have to pay this loan back.
You probably wanted to keep your kneecaps.
Yes. And I wanted to keep my boyfriend at the time, right? So I was like, and he was putting a lot of, you know, faith in me, right? So anyhow, so we did pay the loan back after year one. We ended up with like 75 kids in the church. And yeah, so definitely an adversity story that turned out.
Yeah, you went. So you went from that though. And this is like, so you went from that to now you're financially free. You travel the world. I think 4 kids. Is that right?
4. Yeah, 4.
Yeah, and you have their own learning program and everything that you do with them, and so you guys can pick up and go to everyone. How did you get from effectively there, to there? How'd you get
Yeah.
from
So a
$19,000 or $25,000 paid back loan in a year to completely financially free at this point?
Yeah, so negative $25,000 to two 8+ figure exits is what happened. The first exit took 10 years, and it was organically painful and slow, and a lot of mistakes were made, and I didn't have the resources I needed or the people around us to make the decisions we needed to move any faster than that. We also didn't have the money, so it was very organic. When we sold to private equity in 2011, we had a nice capital exit, but I had a non-compete in Canada. So that was a bit of a challenge. And then we kept the real estate, later sold it to a real estate investor. But then
And
I
these
went
are for
into
the Montessori
long-term care.
schools. Is that right?
Yes, yes. So I sold the preschools we had numerous locations at that point.
Right.
So I had built from the church to plazas, from plazas to standalones, kind of
Wow.
like a
How many locations?
very slow, 10.
Wow. Okay.
So, but it was a very, very slow process. And we had what was very advantageous or lucky for us was that we had amazing parents who helped us at the school. So like we had builders and developers, and they were like, hey, we love what you're doing. We can help build. You can pay us. We can partner. Then you will get out, right? And that's sort of how the standalones came into place, because we never had the amount of money needed at that time for 20%, down payment on a huge new building. So it was really awesome. The people and the relationships that came to play were integral in our growth for sure. Once selling to private equity, we kept the real estate. We became landlords, and I was like, this is a really good deal. Like, I'm loving this, like making money without working. That was my first kind of like aha moment to, wow, things can really be better. And so I didn't really have the knowledge, the education, or the familial background to understand about investing to make passive income, right? I mean, that was not anything anyone had ever been able to teach us. It just wasn't something our family was doing, right? We were work hard, then that's how you get your money, right? The more you work, the more you make. And so I had 3, 4, 5 jobs during that first year paying that loan. Like we were not shy about working or work ethic, but I didn't have the knowledge for that bigger level and that much larger, broader way of thinking. And so, long story short, I got out of the childcare business because I had a non-compete in Canada, so I couldn't really open again there. Missed it terribly because I loved it. I didn't want to sell, but as all entrepreneurs, everything's for sale for a price, and they just could not. I couldn't refuse what they offered us, honestly. Just thinking about our family and the trajectory that it would change for us. So I went to long-term care, opened a bunch of places. Everyone was dying all the time. It was so sad. I was like, this is not for me. I was crying. It was hard. So I started to look for other Montessori preschools in Michigan because we were right on the border. So I thought, well, I'll just commute, right? No big deal. I'll go there an hour, it'll add 2 hours to my day, but I'll continue to do what I love and what I'm passionate about. And I had taken all the training. So I was trained all the way up now. And so I had a lot more knowledge about what to offer in the school as well. And if I had to, I could do it myself if I had to start it again. So long story short, it was a recession, or 2011 still everyone hadn't totally recovered. And Michigan wasn't really super vibrant because it was automotive based. So it was kind of coming back slower. I checked into Ohio, Illinois, right? Anywhere that was like, okay, I could maybe make it back home in time if anything was needed for the kids, because I had 4 kids, right, still. And we had all those schools happened. I had 4 kids under 6 and almost 6 schools happen at the same time. So it was really crazy, right? And then when we sold in 2011, I had just had my littlest baby about a year. Well, she was born in 2011, so very similarly. So I had an infant. So leaving, for that, even a couple of years later, I think she was 2 or 3 when I started to look for schools. A broker basically said, hey, I know you're looking. I got these schools in Omaha, Nebraska. And I was like, sure.
A little different than even Michigan or Ohio.
Right. So I was like, sure, let's go check them out. So got on a plane, came out here. I'm actually in Omaha, Nebraska right now, but came out to Omaha, met with the owner, sweet little like 84-year-old woman, was like, I just need a legacy. I need someone to come here and take this over. My family doesn't want it. I don't want to leave the schools. She was literally living to get this thing offloaded, and we had the same training. We had a lot of history. Funny, she went to Michigan, all the things just lined up. And so sometimes there is some serendipity in all of the way that all this works. I do feel like, we put ourselves in situations as well. But she sold me the schools. She had a big private equity buyer that was competing with me, and she sold them to us. We had a lot of issues because I'm not American. I had to get an EB-2 visa. I was denied. I mean, all the things happened, right? I ran those preschools for 2 years, cash only, zero credit. I don't know if you've ever run businesses on cash only, but we had 300 kids and 7 locations, and I was running everything on cash. And cash I didn't have.
In a world that is, not focused with cash these days, most things are on credit.
Right.
Wow.
And so the banks wouldn't give me anything because I'm not American. I have no history. I have zero credit in the United States. I have zero credit as a business owner, even though my past had, credit. It was in Canada. So it really... Yeah. So I remember the first week I moved over here, I went to Banana Republic and I had to get some suits. And I was like, they said like, if you get a credit card, it'll be 40%, off. And I was still cheap. I was like, yeah, that'll be great. I'll pick some suits up, leave them here. And I got denied at the teller. And I was like, man, this definitely means I need to do some work here. So, but long story short,
how long did you end up owning those? And then you sold those too? Is that what happened?
Yeah. So, again, we didn't want to, but I ended up building, kind of buying everything around Omaha. Sellers were coming to me and like, hey girl, like we see what you're doing. We're ready to get out. Do you want to take ours too? And so we just kept kind of acquiring more and more locations. We ended up building one ourselves and then got to 10. And we did that through COVID. So 2019 to 2021, we went from 300 students to like 1,100 students. And basically pretty much overnight if you're looking at a business. And we scaled super fast. We had mentorships in place. We were in rooms with way bigger people. Mentorship was game changing for us, especially in the States, because there were so many ways to keep your money in the US. In Canada, we had none of those options. So there weren't tax initiatives to invest in different things. Like we just didn't know anything. So we used our money much more wisely. We figured out how to invest and create alternative streams of revenue. We bought all the real estate as soon as we could. She gave us a first right of refusal on all the buildings, and we finished buying the last one just prior to her passing. And so ended up selling to private equity. Approached us again in 21 during COVID. And we were at our fullest, like super robust enrollment because we were doing care for emergency service providers. So all the COVID hospitals, the doctors. So we quickly flipped when DHHS was shutting us down. I was like, I got to go in the basement. I'm going to come up when I have a solution. And 2 days later, I came up and was like, we have reorganized our entire business. We are now the childcare emergency services provider of choice. And so went to the city, did all that licensing quick. And within 3 days, we were reopened, reformulated, reconfigured, with 250 kids on the wait list. And then private equity was like, whoa, this girl's killing it in COVID. How does this happen? And so I was finishing what I called my passion project, and it was a new build for the hospital, actually. And they approached us, and I was like, no, I'm not selling. I just moved my whole family here. My kids hated me. I took them out of 8th and 7th grade. And one of my, I'm just going to say this because one of my mentors is Grant Cardone, and he said to me, Julie, in business, you have to move. Where the opportunity is, you have to leave and go. It's going to sometimes involve your family and involve choices that are not going to be easy, but those choices are calling you for a reason. And so I literally moved them all here in 2019 when I saw things. So for the first 18 months, I went back and forth every Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, home, Thursday night, Friday night, Saturday, Sunday, back Monday for 18 months. And that was really hard on the kids too. Like my little one, Zoe, she still talks about it today. Like, remember when you used to leave us to come here? So, it's not easy. Right. And so you have to make these really hard decisions and these things that you have to do to get to where you need to get to. But why I said that was because it was the absolute best financial decision we could have ever made. We sold to private equity in 2019 after 3 years of ownership, about almost 4, I guess, 3.5 years of ownership. And we sold for 12x, basically. I sold all of the schools to a private equity who bought the operations. But what I was really smart about this time is I had them sign triple net leases for 15 years and sold all of the real estate to a REIT with all those triple net leases in place. And so the exit was phenomenal and took all of the real estate money, heavily weighted the deal on that because there was a lot more tax incentives. Like, see, I did none of this the first time, and I didn't plan properly or anything. Exited with a 1031 on all the real estate. So we ended up buying, we own a bunch of triple net all over the US. We own Starbucks, O'Reilly's, Starbucks, like 5 of them, O'Reilly's, a couple locations, Childcare locations, learning experience locations, like Walgreens, just a bunch of triple net that pay us every month. And so every month on the 1st, our bank account sort of fills up with all of the rent. Anything that we owe on any of the properties gets taken out. And then we live with, $1 million+ in net revenue off rent. And so that is without working. And then we're continuing to increase equity, right? Because our buildings are continually increasing in value. All of our leases were new, off market. So we buy direct from developer. And then so we're really not responsible for anything. We're responsible for roof and structure, but with new builds, it's pretty guaranteed that you're not going to have those issues. And so we did that. And then we figured out from hanging out with billionaires in these rooms that we got into that, you know what, Julie, because I had a big tax bill when I had all this passive income that now I don't have a business to write all this stuff off. We opened a real estate holding business, which we had already with the real estate, but we weren't using it. There was real estate professional status. We ended up going through and buying a bunch of multifamily, which Grant helped with, and just the mindset around eradicate all the tax. So we took the multifamily. We did a lot of apartment investments. We have about $600 million in apartment investments right now that we've syndicated into as co-GPs. All of those negative K1s kind of hang out in a cloud for us, and we just take down that tax eradication when we need it. And so when it was 100%, we really buckled into a lot of it. It's 60% now, but we still use the same sort of trifecta strategy. And so now, we travel a lot. We'll be in Hawaii for the month of June, and then July we'll be in Europe. The kids are going to do some entrepreneurship programs at Oxford this summer, and Bo and I will go to Greece or hang out while they're doing that. So we just, it's been life changing.
Okay, so Julie, your story is a great entrepreneur story. And there's a number of lessons that I take away from it. Some of them are themes that are recurring on the show. Number one, the long game. So you played the long game and you kept at it. Number two, you found a way, you made a way, right? So you're in Canada and you decided to buy a place in, Nebraska, and Omaha. Yeah, sorry, Nebraska, Oklahoma.
Funny you said that because for 6 months I called it Oklahoma. I didn't even know where I was going. I was like,
but you didn't have any credit. You weren't established in the United States. You'd never lived here. You didn't know the laws here. But you just water dripping on a rock, kept at it, right? Whatever challenges came up in the middle of COVID, you had to redesign your business. You figured out how to do that, right? So that you could keep going. You ultimately learned from your exits. You learned from your sales on how to set things up, and then have continued to parlay that into other things. I think there's just a tremendous amount of lesson for anybody who is an entrepreneur about the different twists and turns and ways and avenues you can go as you grow as an entrepreneur. But the thing that I've always said, and the thing that I think is probably paramount with listening to you, I've always said that anything can be learned. Mm-hmm. And that's what you've done. I've learned to do this, and then I learned this. I didn't know this, but then I learned that, and so on and so on. And every time you, yeah, and that's the key to everything. So, constant learning, you can see the benefits of it, like in the story that you're telling, because of the fact that like you didn't understand how you could use the tax system to your advantage, right? And really make the most out of your situation. And you learned how to do it. You got with the right people. You found mentors. You did that stuff. So to me, there's just so many great takeaways from your story for all entrepreneurs that they can use on their path. So in this world now that you've created for yourself, because we talked about in the beginning, designing the life, that you wanted. And I kind of alluded to that I think you wanted this life of financial freedom from the time you were young, but you didn't know how you were going to get there. Right? Yeah. Now you've done it. Now you've gotten there. Now you've had a chance to look back on it and all that stuff. You coach people and everything else. So what are the steps, or what are the phases that you coach people to take or go through to accomplish the same sort of thing in their own way?
Yeah. So depending on where they're at, Dave, because so many people are at different spots on this entrepreneurial journey. I feel like we talk a lot, even in my book. I kind of break down first and foremost, like the entrepreneurial mindset, right? A lot of people, that is a huge blockage for abundance. So when they start with sort of a scarcity mindset, or a mindset that says, I'm limited to this, I say, let's start with the end in mind. Like, what would be this utopian, end game for you, long game, infinity, game. And then let's back up and, really talk about some mini targets along the way, right? So we set big targets, but then I also set like these intermediate targets along the way to get to, so that I'm continually motivated by the progress. And then I'm like, oh, shoot, that target wasn't big enough. Needs to be bigger, right? That's sort of what we kind of start with. But the big thing is like, do you have the mindset to do this? Because if you can't wrap your mindset around growth and around always be learning and around being coachable and being absorbent, I read thousands, literally, of books a year. I listen to thousands of podcasts. I have something in my ear or around me, even when I'm working. I'm constantly absorbing. Like I always say, #ABL, always be learning. Like that is my deal. If you talk to anybody, they'll always say, oh, Julie's like reading, or she's learning something new. Like I'm always at conferences. People are like, but you've made it. No, I have a lot more to go, right? Yeah. I have a lot more to do.
That's the rub, right? Like I say, anything can be learned, but you got to want it. Like, and if you don't want it or desire it enough, it doesn't matter. Like if I could be a rocket scientist. If I really wanted to, I could go devote however many of the next years to learning what it takes to become a rocket scientist and going through what I need to do it. I don't want to do it. So I'm not going to.
Right.
But
you're not going to.
If people,
and
but if I wanted it bad enough, I could.
Right. Becoming an expert in anything takes 1,000 hours, period. I don't know if you listen to Jesse Itzler at all. He says it all the time.
Yep.
You want to be an expert, take 1,000 hours and dedicate yourself 1,000 hours to that, and you will be better than 99% of the rest of the people. Okay. So anybody could do anything, right? But if you don't believe in yourself, forget it. If you have massive imposter syndrome, it's really challenging. If you feel like you're limited, if you listen to noise, right? I've had to get rid of friends. We've had to eradicate family. We've had to eradicate where we live. We've had to move away from people, things, noise, lots of white noise. Today I posted on one of my socials was a little diagram, and it had like 3 kind of blocks, right? The first one was like the people who basically criticize. Oh, there was like millions of dots in that box. The next one was like the talkers, right? Lots of boxes. And the doers, there was like 4 in the box, right? So that's exactly how I've lived my life. Like constantly like karate chopping all of these things happening around me. Because that, if you let that infiltrate you, if you let past trauma infiltrate you, like I don't look back. I mean, I learn from the lesson and then I move forward. I don't stay stuck. Success, I'm obsessed with my success, period. It's an obsession. I'm obsessed with it for my family. I'm obsessed with it for many reasons, but I am not going to stay looking in this small rear view mirror, which is small for a reason. I'm all about the windshield. Like what's coming next? How can I move forward? It's very much a mindset thing. And I've believed in myself since day one. Like when everyone else was like, you're crazy, you're going to quit law school, because that was part of it, to go and be a teacher, a preschool teacher in the basement of a church. Like you're going to live like your mom. It's going to be really stressful. You're going to need 2-3 jobs. You're going to live, you're going to stay in this neighborhood. I was like, hell no, that is not going to happen. I know that, right? I'm going to make something of this. So, and not that my mom or the situation, like I appreciate everything, but she worked so hard that I was like, I never want to work from 7 a.m. until 10 p.m. It is so hard. I saw her, the struggle, the emotional, it's just a lot, right? 2 little kids trying to make it. I just was like, this will not be me. I don't care how this is going to happen. I'll work 7. I was ready to work 7 jobs to have what I needed. But it's the belief in yourself has to be first. That's what I always start with folks. And then, yes, taking that adversity, turning it into abundance, really like changing the mindset around adversity and why things happen to you. They're happening to you for a reason. So I always say like things don't happen to you. They happen for you. Right. Yeah. And so like, that's just something we talk about in our house with our kids, with everything. We also believe that generosity breeds abundance. We are givers naturally. We give information. We give time. We give money. We just give. We're just givers. And we feel like that has brought a lot of karmic give back, honestly. And we don't do it for that, but we just feel like it just is continuing. Like we give 10x, we get 100x back. It just keeps building. And so we talk a lot about that and prioritizing.
Yeah. That reminds me of something that I think I read when I was kind of researching in your book and stuff. And it's probably a good aside to it is you talk about maximizing ROL. What is that?
I was just going to say that prioritizing return on life was my next statement that I was going to we're so like in tune with what's going on in this conversation, but return on life. So like before it used to be all about return on investment, right? Like what is the financial return of me doing this? And this is exactly, everything's super calculated via a financial return because it had to be, Dave, really.
Right.
Now we're like, okay, what is the return on life for us? Which means what is the return professionally, personally? How is that affecting my spouse and my kids and our time together and all of the pieces together? That equation looks very different now. I say no to a lot of things I said yes to for a long time. People would say, can I bend your ear? I'd be on a phone for 3 hours. Now I'm like, sure, here's the link. You can book me. It's not happening as much as, I would love to give all my time, but I also felt like I was taking away a lot of time, energy, efforts, and I still do way too much pro bono, but my family, prioritizing family and health. And that's going to be a takeaway here. You only have your health once. So like once you no longer have life, that's it. Like time and health are something you really can't control unless you really with health, you really need to be in very, conscientious, I would say, about your health. If you let that go, lots of things happen, including, possibility of you not being here anymore. And so the importance of your physical and mental health is part of that ROL as well. And so, yeah, like you said, our family has, toured all 7 continents. That was a goal of ours with the kids. And we just keep checking goal boxes and targets off. But you have to be healthy to be able to do those things. You have to be like,
Right.
I'm 50, I want to still do the hiking and the whitewater rafting and all the fun things with the kids that we do. Right. So, you have to put efforts into taking care of yourself and prioritizing that. And that's really hard as an entrepreneur because you always, especially as a mom entrepreneur, I found I was last in that list of priorities, right?
Well,
So,
yeah. And speaking to that too, I think, you know, and I think you and I talked about this when we first met. It's something that I talk about all the time too, is that balance is BS. And it really is about finding the harmony. Right. If you've taken orchestra and you have different areas just play by themselves without the rest of the orchestra, it sounds horrible. Right. But if you find the harmony, it sounds great. Right. And there's no balance in that. It's these guys doing this well, this doing this well, and it comes together to create the harmony. So have you, well, not how, but yeah, I guess how have you found that harmony with raising a family? And I guess what's your, number one piece of advice for entrepreneur moms out there?
Yeah. So a couple things. You said the symphony, which to me is really important to think about because I just read something about, how the symphony, like the orchestrator, he faces the symphony and not the crowd. That's entrepreneurship. We cannot be in the crowd, facing the crowd. We have to turn our back on all of that and become part of the symphony, right? The symphony means we have to have harmony in a lot of parts of our life. And when I saw that, it resounded so much with me. And then you just brought that up. It's like this theme here going on today. But so how did I balance it? I didn't. I say in my book too, it's BS. Balance is BS. Harmony means different things to different folks, right? For me, it meant when I am with the kids, if it's one soccer game a month that I can get to, I'm there. My phone is off. If there's a fire at the business, someone's going to manage that and I'll find out in an hour. It's really hard to do that. It has taken me 20 years and I'm still not, I wouldn't say I've perfected it, but I also don't look back. I don't feel guilty about the times I wasn't there. People say, I've missed all these moments. Okay, maybe, but my kids are living an incredible life and we're living it together now. And this is when they're remembering and it counts. I know people say, well, you weren't there when they were little. Well, I was throwing up under my desk, pregnant with them in a playpen in my office. However, and I had a lot of help. We had a village. My parents, my grandparents all helped with the kids. I wasn't not there, but was I fully there? Probably not. No, because I had to balance 6 schools and 4 kids under 6, right? So the biggest thing I can say is stop making yourself feel so guilty. Number one, there's nothing you can change to fix whatever has happened. Focus on what you can do now and in the future. It's the whole rear view mirror thing as well, right? Stop worrying about what happened. You got your family here. You changed the trajectory of their life. That is going to be 10 generations deep. So yeah, 10 years. Okay, maybe you weren't the best mom or whatever, in society's terms, but I'll tell you that my kids now, I could get emotional about it. I probably will. They went to college and my oldest son, I dropped him off and I was like, okay, I got this. This is great. I'm so proud of you. I'm so happy for you. We've given you everything, right? When they're 18, if you haven't given them what they need, the hell they're going to start learning, at 18. So we're all about be a good human, prep yourself to, go into this world. We left. I was totally fine, Dave. We drove off. I was like, he's so ready. I'm so proud, Then he sends me this text. It was 2 pages long about how incredible we are as parents and how we've prepared him. And I'm not going to go there because I will get very emotional. But then it was the moment I was like, this is harmony. Exactly. I had to deal with all this other stuff and a lot of naysayers and people that were like, you're not a good mom. You're not doing this. You're not, again, karate chopping all that shit every single day. Right. And then just really understanding that my humans are good humans. Right. And so, so that's about all I can say about harmony, but you'll realize when these kids become young adults, how they look up to you. and all the things that like, you're like, man, maybe I wasn't doing this, or maybe I didn't do that. And then they're like, Mom, man, like we want to be you, And so that's super cool. Yeah. Yeah.
No, that is really cool. In fact, I'd love to end it on that right there because it's such a great message. But I have another question for you before we get to your Misfit 3. And really, that is around just digging in a little bit on some of these passive income streams, because you coach and help other entrepreneurs, tap into these different passive income streams so they can reach their financial freedom too. So tell us a little bit more about that. What are some specifics on some of these passive income streams so that people can maybe start to learn on their own about them, or maybe even reach out to you for help with that?
Sure, Dave. Yeah. So we've kind of been continually finding out about them as a problem solver for ourselves, right? So everything we've done, I'm not an accountant, not a financial analyst. The information I give you here is based on my own experience and what's worked for us. And I always say that because I never want someone to do something and then say, well, it didn't work for us. Well, I don't know what your situation is, right? So I can kind of give you some generalizations about what we've done that have helped us. First and foremost, the triple net investment for me was very important because I had a very high active income, right? So like we had, $1 million+ coming in net actively that we were using just for our family. And when you sell your business, there's also lots of things that we go through with our people. But one of them is, you have a number in mind of what you think you want to sell. Go back, take an Excel sheet with your business, all the things that you write off that are really personal, create a spreadsheet about that and keep that really close, because when you're selling, you need to know what your active income replacement number needs to be, not the big, hairy, audacious 65 million you sell for. It needs to be, what do I need to live off per month and not take from this pile of money that I receive from a sale? I tell them all that because that was my first mistake when I sold the first time. We were like, woo, we're just buying a Ferrari and now we're buying all of these liabilities. And I was like, woo, we're 30 some years old and we're living the dream, right? Well, yeah, until what, right? So, and it would have lasted probably 10.
Like, oh, we lost our cash flow.
Right. See? Exactly. So I only buy now, and my kids only buy. They're 19 and 18. They already own apartment buildings. Like we're legit into this. Like when I'm telling you we're doing all this, we're doing it with our kids as well. So first and foremost, the triple net, we had to replace an active income that was steady. So the only product we could find in real estate, besides having to like own and manage tenants, toilets, trash, which I was not interested in doing, we wanted something that we could make money and we really didn't have to deal with tenants or toilets or trash or those types of things. So the triple net became really attractive because you get a 15-year lease, you have rent bumps along the way, you have exactly what you're going to make every month, and all of our tenants are corporate. So they have signed leases, right? So I'm just going to say this because some people don't know about triple net. So we bought a Starbucks. We bought many, but I'm just using the one here up the road because I go there and I feel like at least I pay my tenants and they pay me to drink their Starbucks. So I kind of feel like that's my liability asset line there. But so we buy the Starbucks, we buy the land and the building. We don't own the Starbucks. Starbucks is not franchisable. They're owned by a corporate company. The company sends us a check every month. If Starbucks decides, you know what, Julie, we don't like this location anymore, we're not going to continue in this location, they close the doors, we still receive payment on that lease for the entirety of the 15 years, unless Starbucks goes bankrupt in all of the United States, which if that happens, sister, we got lots of stuff happening before, more problems than we know, right? So we have 5 locations that pay that a month. And people will say, well, Julie, like what kind of money can you make from Starbucks? Well, for example, they're all about $12,000 to $15,000 a month in rent. Okay. So pending if you buy cash, obviously then that's all yours. If you're leveraging 50%, then half that's yours, right? So the idea here is 2 things. With rates the way they are, it's really challenging to buy triple net, right? So people are like, well, I don't know how to make this work. Well, we had a bunch of people saying, Julie, we want to do this, but we don't have $3 million. How do we do this? So we started syndicating for them. So now we buy them cash. people come in and they invest with us. So like say you have $100,000 and you're like, I want a $500 a month. I need a $500 a month return. That's about what it is on a Starbucks for 125,000 will get you $500 to $600 a month consistently. Every month they get that on the first. There isn't an issue about tenants. Who's not paying rent? What's happening? What are the expenses? They pay for everything. We get the check. You get your money.
I think that's important to explain. Like triple net includes, like it's all in everything. So that I think that's important for people to understand.
Yeah. And so the other thing, Dave, is like you can get double net or triple net. Most Starbucks are double net, but that just means roof and structure, which I kind of talked a little bit beforehand. The roof and structure are only a problem if you're buying something at like a 10-year mark, right? We buy them new. So we're getting brand new warranties, brand new everything. You know, if anything goes wrong, the GMs, they just come and fix it. So we don't have any commitment to that. So a triple net is fully like you're not responsible for anything, but oftentimes they don't have a corporate guarantee. So you have to be a little bit careful about what you're choosing. We also do storage and industrial. That's a little bit of a different play. That's longer. We did a YMCA in Tallahassee, Florida that we're working on with another group. We flipped it to climate control storage and added 80,000 square feet of storage. So that will be a longer term play. We have obviously the multifamily. Buying in the apartments gives you something called bonus depreciation. The government really rewards folks for buying housing or for helping with housing because the government doesn't want to do that. So housing, oil and gas, certain industries, agriculture, there's like 3 or 4 that will give you something called bonus depreciation. When I was talking about the negative K1, that will produce a negative taxable sheet that you kind of keep in this cloud. The only thing is you can't use that negative K1 towards active income. So we have a bunch of other little things that we work.
Oil and gas is 90% write-off in the first year. If you're investing in
It's a little more risky. It's a little more risky. So you have to know your risk tolerance. So for us, we wanted something, like I said, that was replacing active income. So we were really strategic about getting the number we needed every month. And then we started kind of dabbling in the trifecta, which helped with eradication of taxes and maybe a little bit of a longer term gain. But generally we're moderate to conservative portfolio because we're 50 and we just like the income and we don't want to fuss too much with things that are like out of our control. Right?
That's great.
Yeah. So those are some streams, but there's some ways to eradicate active income. And that's for your business owners. That's really where it's at because they can't use the negative K1 against active income. Right. So a lot of people think, oh, well, I'm going to just, invest in apartments, but then they don't get the tax break and then they got to pay the tax anyway. Right. But for us, it was like, we either pay the tax to the government or we invest and try to make more money off that rather than just giving it away. Active income strategies are things like conservation easements. There's some oil and gas that is mining, I believe, is you can use for active. There's only a very few amount of products and it has to work for your portfolio. But definitely worth a conversation with your CPAs on, tax strategy, at least meeting with them biannually for tax strategy. That's super helpful for us as well.
Okay, it's time for Julie's Misfit 3. These are the 3 things that she wants you to take away that you can put in your life, your business, make a difference for yourself starting today. And the way that I always frame this to every guest that comes on the show is I say, hey, look, if you were going to leave this earth tomorrow and you could only leave behind your 3 best pieces of wisdom to the generations that come after you to help them live their best life, what would those 3 things be? So, Julie, what are your Misfit 3?
Okay, so the first one is believe in yourself and commit to continuous learning. The second one would be a good human in all things. And the last one would be prioritize your health and family and your return on life.
Oh, those are all good. Succinct and just useful throughout all areas of life. So thank you for sharing that. If people do want to learn more about you, your book, where should they go?
Sure. So they can go to www.thejulieroy.com. It has everything in there about if they want real estate advice. There's some free downloadables and resources they can grab there. The book's listed there. Speaker engagements are there too. So some media, podcasts, things like that they can just pick up and grab some nuggets from.
Awesome. Awesome. We'll link to all that in the show notes so that people can find it. The best show notes in the business. No offense, Julie, for reasons I will talk about more in a second. But first, for those of you that are new to the Misfit Entrepreneur, it's your first episode with us. Welcome. It's such an honor to have you with us. And I hope you become a regular listener and subscriber. And for all of you Misfit Entrepreneurs that are with us every single week, in and out, I cannot thank you enough for your support of the show. You are what makes this go in over 100 countries every single week. So thank you, thank you, thank you. And make sure and go out and check out the show notes for this episode. They are the best in the business. Why? Because I do them myself. Every week is part of my personal growth, my continuous learning. I go back through these episodes and I take my best pieces of wisdom and tips and information and habits and things like that I think are really relevant, and I share those with you. So check those out. And go out and give this episode a rating and review. Like and comment on it. Help share Julie's message, because I say this in every episode. We all know one great episode can change someone's life. Maybe something that Julie shared today was that missing link you were looking for to get to your next level. So share this with others. And again, Julie, thank you so much for coming on, sharing all your wisdom and insight today.
Thank you so much, Dave, for having me. And hopefully someone walks away with a little nugget to change their life.